All right, good afternoon, traders. Today is April 9th, 2025. My name is John Kerrigan. I am the lead instructor for the BYOB Trading Room. I want to thank everybody here in the room with me today. I thank you for your subscriptions. I don't take that for granted. I try to provide content with value every day. Thank you, everybody out there in digital land. Thank you so much for following me, subscribing to my channel, following me on X. I appreciate that. Love the kind comments. Thank you so much for being a part of the BYOB experience. All right, let's take a look at some charts today. All right, so we had big news came out today. All right, so they're going to delay the tariffs for 60 days. Isn't that cool? All right, so what do we got here? We had a relief rally up here that went up to 578. All right, and then we had a relief rally to the relief rally, which never recovered the relief rally, and that went up to 567. We are looking at a W pattern, all right, which gap filled here, filled a bearish gap there. That's good news. Got another bearish gap up here that I'd like to see get filled. So there'll be some resistance right up there at the top of that candle, which is, so resistance is on the high 547.97. All right, so we got some resistance up there. We can go ahead and put a line in. And 547.97. Okay, so that's our resistance area. You can see that last candle didn't quite touch it, poke it, or pierce it. Maybe means they're going through. We'll see what happens. All right, so price action. All right, we had nothing but a whole lot of consolidation. And then you can see the ramp up of the candle lows right through here. All right, and then we had, you can see the VZO climbing up out of there. All right, take a look at it on the 5. All right, see the VZO, see the lows getting higher and higher, and the highs getting higher and higher. And then they just had a blast off up there. So there was your clue to buy this for the breakout. All right, price action was on the 10-minute chart. Nothing but consolidation. Then we had a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP right here. And if you got in on that 10-minute uptrend over VWAP, you were rewarded all the way up to, 545 up there. It's a nice rip right out of 500. So a $40 rip today. Okay, that's huge because we don't even get weekly candles that are that big. All right, it's like a $40 rip in one day. All right, so you can see price action, our flagship trade, 10-minute uptrend over VWAP, and you can see price action rips up over that. All right, 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. All right, that's on the 10-minute chart. So we got a 10-minute uptrend going into the close. On the 2-hour chart, we have a 2-hour uptrend going into the close. All right, on the daily chart, we have a bullish engulfing. Let's see if we get follow through tomorrow. All right, price action is still in a downtrend. All right, we've got a higher low and a higher high closing over a bearish trap, but underneath the 17 EMA. All right, and underneath the all-time high anchored VWAP. Okay, so still in a downtrend, no longer bearish. Right now, it's neutral. All right, so there's SPY. All right, let's take a look at the game plan. Now, if you traded the game plan, all right, I'll back this out so you can see the game plan. Let me just slide this over. We like 2 days till expiration or 9 days till expiration Friday options. All right, and we like them $2 to $5 out of the money. We actually, the $2 to $5 out of the money, we're not that cheap. So we actually went, some of us went $20 and $30 out of the money just to bring the cost down. Now we're not going to get the performance that an in-the-money option is going to bring. But let me just say, some of those in-the-money options that were 0 DTE, some of the out-of-the-money options that were 0 DTE were priced at $11, $12, $10, $9, and $8 for an out-of-the-money 0 DTE option. Incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive, okay? And likewise, that went for all the options that we're purchasing right now. A lot of volatility, and you bet it's priced in. All right, you can see right here, green erases red. Green erases red right over the top of this hump. Right there's your entry right over 507.25. If you played the game plan, 10-minute uptrend over VWAP, you could have rode that all the way out into the close. It stayed constant till the end of the close. So nothing but a wind up here, and you can see the VZO price action was heading up. Price action ripped all the way up there. So there's SPY on the 10-minute chart. All right, on for the game plan. Let's take a look at QQQ game plan. All right, QQQ game plan worked as well. All right, again, we like the same options for QQQ. QQQ pivot 420.90 above it. I'm a bull. You can see a 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. All right, nice trade right there. Nice 10-minute uptrend. Probably a $40, $50 ride right there from, let's just say, from 420 up to 467. All right, that's a nice ride for a 10-minute uptrend. Look at the distance being put in between VWAP and the 10 EMA right there. Okay, so the bearish entry never triggered for today. All right, was nothing but bullish entry right there. All right, so there's QQQ. QQQ game plan work. SPY game plan work. Let's look at QQQ on the daily chart. All right, let's shoot over here. And QQQ no longer bearish. Back to neutral. Higher low, higher high. I'm going to go out on a limb and say everybody got a lower high and a higher low and a higher high, closing over a bearish trap. Some under the 17, some over the 17, but under the all-time high anchored VWAP. All right, so there's QQQ on the daily chart right there. Big engulfing, igniting candle right there. That's the biggest candle I've seen in a long, long time. Look out. We could get 3 of these and you could find ourselves all the way back up at the highs. All right, just look out above. All right, QQQ, daily chart, looking really nice right there. All right, weekly chart is still in a downtrend. Daily chart still in a downtrend. All right, no longer bearish. Now we're neutral. If they happen to make a higher high, okay, so they'd have to come up over this area up here. 490, actually about 500. All right, if they reach 500, they will break or negate the downtrend status and convert it to an uptrend. All right, they have to make a higher high. So there's QQQ on the daily chart. Let's take a look at Diamond Dow. All right, same candle over the trap, over the bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high in VWAP. No longer bearish. All right, it's now neutral right there under the 17. Okay, so now neutral. I'm holding, yes. I'm holding, Mel, are you holding 560 calls for tomorrow? Yes, I am. Yes, I will hold those till tomorrow. I will probably ride those out into 0 DTEs. Yes. Price action. Okay, we just did Diamond Dow. Let's do IWM. Okay, we got I think that's a lower low. There's a low, 172.34. There's a low, 171. Okay, so we got an outside day for IWM. Still bearish down here in the lower third. All right, closing up over the bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Still bearish for IWM. All right, let's take a look at FNGA. All right, higher low, higher high, closing over, looked like a bullish cross almost, over a bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Still bearish, all right, because we're still in the lower third. All right, that's FNGA on the daily chart. Still under the all-time high anchored VWAP there. All right, let's take a look at our technicals, T2122. All right, see nothing but consolidation, huge breakout to the midpoint, created a higher low right here, created a lower high, created a lower low, all right, and created a lower high. So we still got sellers up there, all right, but all in all, closed the day out over the midpoint, so that's nice. And we made a higher high than this peak from yesterday. There's T2122. T2123, selling from the beginning of the day, all right, then a rip, all right, and then they took lunch early and they never came back from lunch. You can see all the martinis there. Okay, price action ripped up here. Something of note, they did fill gap. So we had a bearish gap. They finally filled a bearish gap. All right, but we still have not made any higher highs. All right, filling the gap is nice. We need to see higher highs. I'm not seeing it yet. Still caught underneath the falling 17 EMA right there. That's T22, T2123, 15-minute chart. On the 3-bar chart, okay, 3 more red candlesticks today. Still underneath the 200 SMA. Still underneath 2 prior all-time highs, as well as the all-time high way up here. Let's take a look at some sectors. Start off with XLE. All right, XLE still in the lower third, so that's bearish. But let me just say they're knocking on the door for the neutral zone. All right, they got a outside day, which is a lower low and a higher high, closing inside a bearish trap, under the falling 17, under this 12-month high anchored VWAP, under these 2 downtrend lines. So still bearish, still in a downtrend right now, okay? Came back and tagged minor resistance. That would be, see these valleys that come down and we are underneath it? That's minor resistance right there. So there's XLE, still bearish, still in a downtrend. Let's take a look at USO. USO, same deal as XLE, still neutral, knocking on the door, still bearish, knocking on the door of the neutral zone. Price action, a little bit different, lower low and higher high. Yeah, it's the same thing. Closing inside a bearish trap under the falling 17, and that's under this 3-year high anchored VWAP. That's the post-COVID high for that one right there. So still bearish down here, still in a downtrend. USO. Let's take a look at high flyer UNG. UNG in the neutral zone, not in the upper third. Looking like an outside day as well, closing inside the bearish trap under the falling 17, over the 12-month high anchored VWAP right there. So just neutral, but knocking on the door to get back into the bullish zone. So there's UNG. GLD. GLD puts in a nice candle today. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish cross, over the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the uptrend line, okay, over the midpoint. That's bullish up there in quadrant 4. Okay, so gold still bullish. Let's take a look at SLV. All right, SLV, higher low, higher high, closing in the bearish trap under the falling 17, and under this is a 12-year high anchored VWAP, as well as a 6-month high anchored VWAP, closing underneath both of those right there. There's silver. Let's take a look at SMH. Wow, that's what we needed to see. SMH, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish cross, over the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, no longer in the bearish zone. All right, so it's neutral. Let's go look at the sibling, technology sector. Technology is neutral. Same deal, higher low, higher high, closing over the bullish cross, over the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, both SMH and XLK, still underneath all-time high anchored VWAPs. Still under the uptrend line. This is neutral. You move down, you give it up, that's neutral. Same thing as if you move up and give it up, that's neutral. So that's XLK. All right, let's take a look at XLF. All right, XLF came out of the bearish zone with an outside day, closing right here over the bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP, over the midpoint though. Okay, so that's in the neutral zone right there. We could see some big follow through tomorrow with these igniting candles. I mean, really big follow through. So there's XLF on the daily chart. All right, so nice work there, coming all the way back to the neutral zone. That's XLF. Let's take a look at IYT, and then we'll look at questions. IYT, higher low, higher high, closing in the, I'm just going to call it in the bearish zone, but definitely poked its head out to the neutral zone and looked around, and it may be visiting that area tomorrow. All right, so IYT, it may find a home in the neutral zone sometime tomorrow or later this week. Higher low, higher high, closing over a bearish trap, under the falling 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. Nice recovery there. That's IYT, still in a downtrend, still bearish down there. Current option suggests 555 consolidation for SPY. All right. Hard to trust this 100%. It was hard. I agree. We did have a game plan. Okay? I don't know if you subscribe to the game plan or not, but we did have a game plan right here. And we did have red erases green right there. If you didn't like that one, you had another one right there you could have taken, and that would have yielded you quite a bit of points on that one. All right, so either way, you had two red erases green, one there and one here, that you could have taken that 10-minute uptrend over VWAP. And I agree it was hard because that was quite extended. And if you were looking at it, all you saw was wicks up there. Big scary wicks, right? Am I right? Big scary wicks, which made it hard to trust. Okay? In times like these, you got big scary wicks. All right, but yet you got an uptrend. I like to use a debit spread. In other words, I would buy the 530 or let's say I would buy the 550 calls, all right, and sell the 570s or the 560s, all right? It allows me to participate, all right, on things that you don't trust, but yet you'll have some security in knowing that if price pulls down, those 560 calls or 570 calls that you sold against it all right, will at least chip away at some of the price retracement should price 10-minute uptrend get crushed and get pulled back to 520. All right, so there's an option plan out there for you. All right, you don't trust it, you see it, it's a 10-minute uptrend, you'd like to see a pullback to VWAP. It just ain't happening. We were at VWAP all day. They're not coming back for VWAP now. We just spent all day rubbing up against VWAP from the open all the way up until the breakout candle right here at 1 o'clock. So chances are they're not going to come back for VWAP on a breakout like that. All right. But if you want to participate, but you find it hard to participate, you could have bought the 540 calls and sold the 550s, or bought the 540s and sold the 560s. At least something would go down, all right, if your 540s went down in price. You see what I'm saying there? Or you could have bought the pullback right here, which held on VWAP up over the rising 17. And then you had another green erases red event right there on the 10-minute chart. Okay? This is the same thing that we trade every day. It's just today it was magnified. All right? It was really magnified because it was, what was this, like a $50 day. We went from $4.95, all right, clearly up to $5.55, $5.45. All right, that's a $50 day. Some of our weekly candles were not that big. All right, so it allows you to participate that debit spread. In other words, you sell out of the money calls above where the calls you went long. All right, it's going to cap off your upside, but you'll still be able to participate, all right, in the upward 10-minute uptrend, should it continue like that. And you know what? If you're unsure and you want to sit on your hands, that's always a safe move, all right? All right, you can always sit on your hands and wait for your setup. It wasn't your setup. You followed your plan. And I want to say congratulations and kudos to anybody that said, you know what, that's way too hot for me. I'm going to wait for my setup, okay? I can do nothing but applaud discipline, all right? Anybody that practiced discipline and said, no, I don't know how to do this one. This is out of my league. This fastball is way too fast for me, and you had the discipline to stay away. Hey, I applaud you for practicing discipline, all right? And it was a hard day seeing those wicks on buying into this uptrend. But we did have a consolidation right through here. All right, so that's it for the game plan. Game plan worked. 10-minute uptrend over VWAP worked. If there's no questions, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow. And Greedy Pig Award goes to, I saw somebody up there. I think it was, somebody did great today. And it was Jim S. I think it was Jim S. Yeah, it was Jim S. Jim S did, you got it up here somewhere. Jim S did 7 daily goals. All right, so he did 7%. He brought his account up 7%. So Jim S is going to have his name on the award for that one. Thank you, everybody. All right, I'll see you guys all tomorrow at 8. All right, I'm looking for some follow-through, maybe up to 550, at least up to this all-time high anchored VWAP. All right, if we get on top of that, look out above. That's at 552.83 right there. I expect to visit that. All right, everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everybody out there in digital land, everybody, have a great evening. Thank you.